there is an immediacy and an intensity, I feel, to the suffering that is experienced in very many African cultures that are war-torn, that have political violence, that have historical tribal clash. Like, the amount that people have lost, often just by existing in an African country, is a lot.
Yeah.
Often. And so, when you see any Christian who has experienced that depth of suffering that so many African people have experienced, that is persevering in their faith, and that is simultaneously going to this church that you are saying is preaching the prosperity gospel, there's questions that need to be asked. Because how is their faith and their confidence in God so deep that their suffering has not prevented them from walking away from their faith?
Mm-hmm.
And yet this teaching is not deterring them from that. If that teaching didn't have the context of suffering in it, how would it be effective in the context of many African cultures? And I think that it's just because many times, maybe when we hear prosperity teaching, a preacher doesn't need to say, oh, and by the way, you're also going to suffer.
Yeah.
Right. No one needs to be told that in Africa.
Be told that in Africa.
Yes.
Like, that's not a question. Like, why would you even include that in a sermon? It's like, duh. But in the Western context, you need to be reminded, oh, by the way, for many of you who might not have experienced very intense suffering, it might come. It might happen, and you need to still have faith in God, even if it does. But in the African context, in the Kenyan context, they've been wrestling with this since they were 5. And they've been struggling with these questions of suffering, and their faith has been deepening and deepening in a really profound way. And what they need to hear is that God does want you to prosper.
Yeah.
He wants you to have a good life. Everything might be chaotic, everything might be painful, but there is a good God. He's looking out for you. He's your Father, and He will pull you through. Continue to have faith in Him and not in other things. That's what they need to hear, and that's what the Mafanikio gospel and other prosperity gospels in the African context are really promoting. This different vision of life that is way more in line with the kingdom and the flourishing that Jesus has purchased for us, rather than continuing to say, and you're going to suffer, but remember, you're going to suffer, and make sure you continue to have faith because you're going to suffer. People don't need to hear that. They really don't.